Hello, I'm Katrina Skepper.
And I'm Tanya Beckett, and welcome to VIP, which in the case of today's guests certainly stands for very interesting people.
Later on, I'll be talking to a fashion designer with a talent for making women look glamorous, and that should guarantee his continuing success, Ben DeLisi.
But before that, we're joined in the studio by a movie director whose first full-length feature, Dark Star, is still one of the funniest science fiction films I've ever seen, John Carpenter.
And it's all the more remarkable because he began making it as a student and it only costs $60,000. Well, since then, he's built up a reputation for thrillers like Escape from New York and his recent follow-up, Escape from LA, and scary horror movies like Halloween, in which Jamie Lee Curtis made her debut.
Well, frightening they may be, but he's quoted as saying that for him, real life is scarier than any movie these days.
He works consistently with his favourite actors, particularly Kurt Russell, Sam Neill and Jeff Bridges, and his low-budget films have proved to be a major commercial success, which shouldn't do him any harm at all.
But he's also not ashamed to acknowledge his admiration for the great masters of the cinema, and above all, Howard Hawks. And it's as patron of a major retrospective of Hawks' work starting in London and going on to the Cinémathèque Française in Paris that he's currently in Europe. Welcome, John Carpenter, to VIP.
It's wonderful to be here.
As we've said, Howard Hawks, a great inspiration for you. That's what brings you to Europe this time round. In what way did he inspire you? Because he made a lot of very different types of movies, didn't he?
Howard Hawks was the greatest American director because he made a classic in every single genre. He could do westerns, he could do musicals, he could do detective thrillers. When I was a kid and I was going to the movies, his movies were the most influential emotionally to me. I really loved them. And then when I went to film school, I began to study them and I began to realize what a master he was.
But what attracted you more specifically to the horror side?
You know, horror kind of found me. I got in this business to make westerns. And all of a sudden, I found myself having a successful horror film on my hands. And we all get typecast in Hollywood. So I got my typecasting, and it became the guy who makes horror movies.
But do you think, surely, just as Howard Hawks did other things, why couldn't you?
Every time I seem to need a job and I need to pay the rent on the house or the pool needs fixing, all of a sudden there's a new script with zombies eating people in it. So I do it.
Hey, it just draws you in. I can understand that. Now, you had your first real big commercial success with Halloween. Just describe that film. A lot of people have seen it, but there are some who haven't.
Well, Halloween is basically along the lines of what Psycho was. It's a dark and scary night, and there's a psycho on the loose. But Halloween basically kind of broke some new ground in terms of frightening people. And I really enjoyed frightening people. It's fun. But now I think a lot of what we did in Halloween has kind of been copied by other filmmakers and been integrated into the mainstream of movie making. So, in a sense, Halloween really isn't that scary anymore.
You said that you enjoy scaring people, but I mean, there's a psychology to it, isn't there? It's probably getting more difficult, isn't it?
Basically, everybody is scared by the same things. There's no mystery. I'm scared of the same things that you're scared of and that you're scared of.
And what are those things?
Dying, mutilation, death of a loved one, death of your child, and it goes on and on. We're all frightened of the same things. Fear is the deepest and the strongest element in human nature. So all you have to do is tap into it, and you're already there.
But you've once said that the more frightening is the evil within instead of the evil without. What do you mean by that?
Well, there are two basically kind of approaches to telling a horror story. One is, you could call it conservative if you want to. They are the enemy. They are the other ones. Those people out there, they're coming to get me. And you see all the science fiction movies in the 50s were about these giant insects or pods that take over. They're coming from outer space. The tougher one is the enemy, the evil is in here, in my heart. And every day I have to wake up and choose not to do evil. That's a tougher one. People tend not to ever try to believe that about themselves because people don't want to think that they're evil or capable of bad things. But in fact, the evil really is in our own dark hearts.
And what films that you've made do you think follow that philosophy?
Oh, God, I don't think any. I primarily make movies where the evil is objectified. In other words, there is a person or a creature, or you know, and he stands for the evil inside of us. But Halloween, in a sense, is about a cipher. I mean, the killer is nobody. He wears a mask, so he could be any of us. And I think that's when people get the most frightened, if they think somebody in their family is a killer, or if I'm a killer. That's terrifying.
Technology plays an increasing role. Of course, technology itself is moving on apace. What role do you think it is now playing, or should play, in a film?
Well, you know, we are a technological medium. Motion pictures grew with the Industrial Revolution. Everything is technology. We photograph people acting. Film is processed, okay? I mean, every single step of the way is technology. They're just another tool to help us make films. And now everybody's talking about computers and the kind of super realism that we can achieve on the screen. It's all simply a tool. Because when you come down to it, what you need is a story to tell.
Do you think you've ever been guilty of overusing technology?
I think I've been guilty of every single sin there is in motion pictures, and I'm sure I've done it.
And
you can blame it all on me.
Excellent, that sounds good. You seem to come back to the same actors, or a lot of the same actors. You seem to have your old favourites. Why is that?
Because they're fun to work with. Somebody like Kurt Russell or Sam Neill or Jeff Bridges, they're really a joy to work with. My job is easy. I can sit back, I can have a cup of coffee, I can look at the pretty girls on the set, and they can go ahead and do the acting.
But what do you think it does for their careers? Do you think you said it yourself, people get typecast in Hollywood. Do you think it typecasts them a little bit? Do you think it limits their careers in other directions?
Well, the people that I work with, for instance, Sam Neill did a horror film with me, and then he said, listen, I'm going to take a couple of years, and a couple of years from now, after I've done some other things, why don't you see if there's another script we could do together? So it depends on the actor. When
you've made a movie, do you think to yourself, that's it, all the ideas seem to be out of you, or do you have ideas still bubbling up inside you? I mean, it's extraordinary to look at you to think, goodness me, where on earth do all these ideas come from?
Well, they come from the fact that I get hired to do it. It's my job. You know, it's something that I chose to do a long time ago. I decided I'm going to be a creative person in this movie industry, and I'm going to make films, and so it has to come out of me. And the paycheck really helps me do it.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you about that, because with all creative people, there's always this question about to what extent their creativity balances their need or their desire to make money. Where does that balance lie with you?
Well, I work in Hollywood, and in Hollywood, what we do is try to make movies for profit. We try our best, okay? And you can only do your best to do it. And when movies don't succeed at the box office, we're all very unhappy. And when they do succeed, we're all geniuses. And it's like being a hired gunfighter. I'm hired to come in and clean up the town. Now, sometimes I get all the guys, and sometimes a couple of them get away. You do your best job, and my best job means that I give it creatively. I tell the story the best way I know how, okay? I tell it as purely as I can.
You've got a reputation as being very cooperative and very good at working with quite low budgets. Is a big budget, in a sense, a bit more of a burden?
It is in a way, and also it makes you lazier because you don't have to be very creative for the big budget. You can get anything you want to. Oh, let's do that take again. Let's blow up that town one more time. You don't ever have to think on your feet. And a low budget is very difficult. Sometimes you have to be incredibly creative because you don't have the money to spread around.
It would be wrong to paint you as a director and put you into that box, because in fact you're so many things. And one of the things that you do a lot, which perhaps people don't realise, is that you actually write many of your own scores.
I do.
And what role does music play in all of it, then? Is it just something you just enjoy doing? Because you're not really trained musically, are you?
I have been trained musically, yeah, from the old days. But I do it because I'm cheap and fast. And I know I can depend on myself to deliver. And it's fun. I love doing it.
And it gives you more control, I suppose.
Sure.
Now, everybody talks a lot about the idea of censorship, the barrier also, or the border between what happens in films and what happens in reality. Do violent films inspire violence in society? What's your view on that?
This is an ancient battle that has been going on since the Greeks were putting on plays and had to rewrite them because they were either too sexy, too violent, or too political. And it's come all the way down through history, and you'll hear it again and again and again. And when we're all older and I'm gone, you'll hear the same story again about a new generation. And real life causes real life murders. Movies do not cause anything. Now, there are people who are out there that are nuts and they're tweaked, and they may sit down in a film and see something and go out and commit a crime. They also may walk into a McDonald's and have a French fry and go out and commit a crime. But there's no link between one and the other.
Nevertheless, it seems to be affecting the industry or potentially in quite a restrictive way. What do you think, then, the popularity or attitude towards horror movies could be in the coming few years? Is that something that worries you?
I only worry that we all seem to rush to give up all our freedoms for order. In other words, we're very frightened about the world and with the way it's changing. So what's the first thing you do? Censor movies, because I'm scared. And really, it's the world out there that's frightening. It's not the movies.
But what would your advice then be to younger directors or the, I would say up-and-comings, the already made it, so Quentin Tarantino? What would your advice be? Broaden your perspectives?
I would say good luck, you know, because it's going to get worse. Censorship is coming. There's no doubt about it. The censors are everywhere. People love to censor. It's a human nature to want to do that. And it's too bad. I had a nice, good run at it, but here they come, so watch your back.
But you're not just about to give up, honestly, are you?
Oh, no, never. But it is inevitable. As soon as a lawsuit against a movie is won for causing a death, then we're in trouble.
Is there anybody that you fancy working with? Because, as we've said, you've worked in horror movies specifically, but is there anybody that you think, who's maybe a bit of an unlikely character, that you think, oh, I'd like to get hold of them and do something with them? You
know what I really would love to do, and I've been begging all my director friends, is I want to now change careers and be an actor. And so if they could just cast me in their movies.
You really want to be an actor?
I got Quentin Tarantino has agreed to put me in his next film. I said, I really want a good part, please.
But I thought the classic line was that all actors wanted to direct.
Huh?
I thought all classic, or is it just, it goes around both ways, isn't it?
Equally, I know that you have a sort of a yearning for the studio system of the 40s and 50s. Why is that? What was so special about those times that you'd like to recreate now?
Well, a lot of it was the way the system worked is you had actors under contract, you had great directors, you had great cameramen, great editors, great writers. William Faulkner was writing for the studios. I mean, it was an unbelievable time. What a great time to be making films.
What, so you think the talent is no longer, is too dissipated now? Is that what you're saying?
It's run by a lot of very ruthless businessmen and it's controlled by the stars. And as soon as you have a star who can't be fired, you're in deep trouble.
And equally, the budget side of things. I mean, Star Wars has just been re-released. It's #1 at the box office. Your film, low budget, dark star, low budget cult film. What do you feel about that, the re-release of Star Wars?
I think Star Wars is great. You know, that was a real low budget film when it was made.
Originally?
Oh, yeah. That was only about $13 million. And now you're making movies. There's a movie being made for $170 million.
Now,
it's coming out this summer. Oh, yeah. You wait. It's unbelievable.
Do you think a bit that we're getting to the stage, though, that there's old ideas are being recycled? Not by you, but by other people?
We all do. We're Xeroxers. You know, we just crank it out and show you the same thing over and over and over again. And there's really, it's terrible, the level of creativity in Hollywood. However, there are a lot of new and upcoming young directors and young stories and young scripts that are coming that are very, very good. So you can't be pessimistic.
We'll have to leave it there. John Carpenter, thank you very much indeed for joining us and giving us a walk through the world of horror, the Horror Meister, John Carpenter there. Well, it's time for a short break now, after which Katrina and I will be back to talk to a designer who makes clothes that women love to wear, Linda Lisi.
Stay with us.